For centuries, the Orioni believed the void was silent. We were wrong. The silence ended the day the sky tore open above our capital moon, Asterion. I remember the sound, an impossibly deep vibration reverberating through every tower, hull, and bone. I remember the panic swelling through the telepathic waves of my people, our minds sinking in fear as the rift blossomed like a wound in the stars. From that wound came the Grath. Metallic leviathans, shaped like barbed spears, plunged through the rift and descended upon us. Their engines shrieked. Their cannons carved open our cities. We had faced them before, very briefly, long enough to know the truth. The Grath did not invade. They consumed. Asterion's skies burned blue and white as our defense spirals fell. Our fleet, once proud and elegant, was swatted aside like drifting ash. The Grath wanted our resources, our knowledge, perhaps our minds. Their motives were as cold as the machines they piloted. Our High Assembly made the only choice left: evacuate who we could, scatter into deep space, and pray that any piece of Orioni heritage survived. I was among the evacuees, a historian, not a soldier, armed with nothing but memory and fear. My name is Karen Solis, archivist of the Third Luminous Library. I carried on my data ribbon the last complete chronicle of Orioni star mapping. It was all I could save. Our fleet fled into the dark between galaxies. For days, maybe weeks, time blurred into a haze of exhaustion and despair. Ships ran low on food. Generators flickered. There were whispers that we'd never find safety again. And then, something found us. A signal pinged across our convoy. Harsh, rhythmic. Unlike anything Orioni, Grath, or from any neighbor known to us. It was alien. It was simple. Federal Joint Command Distress Protocol, identify yourselves. We were stunned. We had reached the edge of charted existence, yet someone lived here. Someone organized. Someone who spoke a language sharp and grounded, not sun like ours. Our last admiral, Leary Vanto, transmitted a reply. Her voice trembled. We seek asylum. We are hunted. We mean no harm. The reply came after 6 long minutes. This is Commander Elias Morgan of the United Human Defense Fleet. Transmitting coordinates for rendezvous. If you require shelter, we'll bring you in. Humans. We had heard myths. Travelers' rumors. Ghost stories told across nebulae of a species born from a violent world who rose to tame the stars with stubbornness rather than brilliance. Many Orioni thought humans were exaggerated legends. Many more thought they were extinct. Yet here they were, transmitting coordinates with casual authority. We followed. We approached a system glowing warm with industry and equilibrium, a ring of habitat stations, forge platforms, and orbital gardens woven around a yellow-white star. Even battered, desperate, and half-dead, we recognized it instantly for what it was. A civilization not just alive, but thriving. Hundreds of human ships met us at the border of their territory. Their hulls were angular, muscular, radiating a confidence so different from our graceful architecture. Gun batteries rotated deliberately toward the dark, not toward us. Their formation screamed readiness, discipline, and caution. A voice came through again, Elias Morgan, though now sterner. Unknown fleet, be advised, you are entering United Terran space. Stand down weapons. You will be escorted to intake station Argo 9 for processing and medical evaluation. Leary agreed without hesitation. What choice did we have? Human escorts surrounded us, their ships flying in tight V formations. They moved with astonishing synchronization, guided not by telepathy but drilled precision. I watched their fleet from my viewport. These were not myths. These were soldiers. When we arrived at Argo 9, we saw thousands of human personnel waiting, engineers, medics, analysts already preparing aid systems we hadn't even requested. They moved with speed and conviction, as if they had been expecting us all along. Commander Elias Morgan met us personally at the docking bay. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a uniform of midnight blue. His eyes held something I had not seen since Asterion fell. Resolve. You're safe now, he said firmly. But we need to know what happened. Our admiral stepped forward. We were invaded. A species called the Grath. They destroyed our capital. They'll pursue us. Morgan exchanged a grim look with his second-in-command, Captain Dana Caldwell, a sharp-eyed officer whose gaze assessed every detail. Understood, Morgan said. The United Terran government has already been alerted. We'll set up temporary housing and medical care immediately. His voice was steady, but something beneath it felt ready to erupt like a controlled explosion. Later, as I rested in the alien but strangely comforting quarters, the humans held an emergency meeting. They did not hide it. Perhaps they knew we could sense their emotions, even from afar. We felt their shock. Their anger. And something else, something colder. A decision forming. As the meeting ended, hundreds of human warships undocked simultaneously, engines flaring bright white against the void. They streaked into deeper space, their formation tight and purposeful. The humans were not preparing to flee. They were preparing to fight. A message came to us shortly after, broadcast across every corridor. This is Elias Morgan. Orioni refugees, know this, you are under Terran protection now. Commanders have been mobilized. Engineers are building defensive stations around Argo 9. And the 1st and 3rd Terran war fleets have been deployed. I stood frozen, breath trembling. We had asked for shelter. But humans did not merely give refuge. They sent commanders. They sent builders. And they sent warships. Because to them, giving shelter meant something different. Shelter meant standing beside us. Shelter meant war. Shelter meant that anyone who burned our home had just threatened theirs. And the humans were already on the move. I felt, for the first time since Asterion fell, a fragile spark of hope. But I also felt fear. Because legends rarely survive untouched by truth. And the truth was unfolding among the stars, loud, relentless, human. The first day under human protection blurred into a fevered haze. We Orioni survivors were resettled into Argo 9's orbital habitats. Medical teams scanned us for injuries. Engineers assessed our ships. But the humans never stopped moving. Everywhere I looked, someone carried tools, blueprints, weapons, or orders. Nothing was wasted, every action had purpose. Commander Elias Morgan made his rounds personally. Each time he passed, he carried an aura that made even our high assembly pause. When he spoke, it was brief but precise, like a scalpel cutting through confusion. His calm anger reminded me of our own lost leaders, but distilled into something harder, sharper. I watched as Captain Dana Caldwell coordinated a squad of builders. Their task was simple in words, impossible in reality: retrofit the battered docking bays and orbital defenses to withstand a fleet that could tear worlds apart. They moved with relentless speed, issuing orders in clipped tones. Even when a piece of machinery exploded, or a docking arm collapsed, Caldwell's team adjusted without hesitation. There was no fear, only determination. "What are they doing?" whispered a young historian, Talon, from the row of evacuees behind me. "Are they building weapons?" "Defense stations," I said cautiously. "But the scale. I've never seen anything like it. This is more than defense." The answer came that evening when the observation decks of Argo 9 lit up with the hum of construction drones and massive assembly platforms. Humans were erecting orbital fortresses, vast hexagonal rings bristling with weapon emplacements, shield projectors, and communication arrays. Every station radiated control, coordination, and an almost arrogant certainty. Then came the fleets. By the second day, 2 human war fleets had arrived at the perimeter of our temporary system. The 1st and 3rd war fleets, each composed of hundreds of capital ships, destroyers, and tactical support vessels, moved in a synchronized ballet, weapons trained toward empty space. Their formations were terrifying. The sky around us felt small. The scale alone would have intimidated even the Grath, had they known. We were invited to the command deck, a vast observatory with transparent alloy walls facing the void. Standing there, I finally met them properly: Admiral Robert Hensley, commanding the First Fleet, and Vice Admiral Laura Chen, commanding the Third. Both human, both exuding confidence layered over rigid discipline. Hensley's expression was calm but sharp, like a predator assessing prey it had yet to strike. Chen's focus was precise, analytical, every calculation and possibility running through her mind at once. Morgan addressed the Orioni assembly. "We don't know the full capabilities of the Graph," he said. "But we do know this: they destroyed your home in days. They will pursue you. We will not let that happen again." Admiral Hensley added, "Our fleets are equipped for rapid response, strategic dominance, and coordinated assault. You will remain under our protection, and we will give you the time you need to recover." Recovery. The word sounded alien in the context of warships and fortresses. I looked at my fellow evacuees, some stared in awe, some in terror. We were guests, yes, but not passive ones. The humans' concept of shelter was not quiet. Shelter was strength. By the third day, the Orioni began to notice something else. Every time a system failed, a ship faltered, or a defensive array was incomplete, humans were already there, repairing, recalibrating, improving. They did not wait for permission. They did not hesitate. Even when the orbiting factories ran out of parts, they improvised solutions on the spot, welding, reprogramming, adapting. It was terrifying in its efficiency. I followed a human engineer, Maya Carson, as she adjusted a massive orbital cannon. She hummed under her breath, her hands moving like water over the controls. "They won't just fight the Graph," she said without looking up. "They'll win. They always do." I wanted to ask how she knew. She just smiled faintly. "You'll see." And then, the first strike alert came. A scout ship, human-made, sleek, invisible against the void, reported a Graph detachment closing on the system. Small, but fast. The alarm screamed through the habitat, waking Orioni evacuees from their uneasy rest. Panic flared in their telepathic pulses. But humans did not flinch. Morgan's voice cut through the chaos: "All combat personnel, prepare for intercept. Civilian evacuees, remain inside shelters. Fleet commands, engage defensive protocols." Within minutes, the warships moved as one. Drones swarmed to block points of approach. Interceptors launched in streaks of fire. The Graph vessel did not even make it halfway into the system before being surrounded, immobilized by electronic nets and kinetic interceptors. When it tried to retreat, a precise strike from a human destroyer shattered its hull, sending shards tumbling into the void. We, Orioni survivors, gasped. We had not seen power like this in centuries. Our own fleets had crumbled under the Graph's pressure. Yet here, humans had taken one of the enemy's ships apart in minutes, cleanly, without hesitation. Caldwell appeared beside me on the observation deck. "They're coming," she said simply. "They'll come in larger numbers next. But we're ready." I shivered. The implication was clear: humans didn't just prepare for defense, they prepared for war. That night, Morgan held a meeting with the evacuees, not as a commander to subordinates, but as a human trying to explain a concept alien to us. "You asked for shelter," he said. "But shelter alone is not enough. We protect. We fight. We build. We ensure your future isn't stolen again." I thought of Asterion burning under the Graph's engines. I thought of my friends and family scattered across the void. And I realized something terrifying and exhilarating: humans did not understand fear the way we did. They saw danger, yes. They calculated it. They fought it. And when the odds were stacked against them, they did not cower. They escalated. The following days were a whirlwind. Humans trained us in basic survival and tactical coordination. They allowed us to observe construction and fleet maneuvers. And every night, the orbital fortresses rose higher, the defensive grids sharpened, and the sense of inevitability grew. We, Orioni refugees, began to change. Fear still lingered, but awe and hope were taking root. If the humans were willing to commit this much, commanders, builders, warships, to protect a species they barely knew, then perhaps survival was not only possible, perhaps we could strike back. And then the scouts returned with news that made the command deck fall silent. The Grath had detected our new position. Not one vessel, but an armada, hundreds of ships, vast and predatory, moving toward us like a storm in the dark. Morgan's jaw tightened. Caldwell's eyes narrowed. Hensley and Chen exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. "Prepare for the inevitable," Morgan said. "But know this, if they want war, we will give it to them. And they will regret it." From my vantage point, staring at the stars now lined with human warships, I realized the scale of what was coming. The Grath were not just pursuing us, they were about to encounter something they had never understood, the humans' version of shelter. And it was terrifying. The Orione evacuees had asked for safety. The humans had answered with war. And the Grath were about to pay the price. The warning alarms had never sounded so loud. Across Argo 9, Orione evacuees scrambled for shelters while human crews moved with machine-like precision. Every orbital station, every weapon platform, every warship was online, radiating readiness. From my vantage on the observation deck, the sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying, a constellation of firepower framing a fragile collection of survivors. Commander Elias Morgan stood at the central console, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the display. Captain Dana Caldwell and Admiral Hensley flanked him. Each human knew their role, each knew the stakes. But it wasn't just military precision that struck me, it was the calm determination that radiated from them, a confidence that war was not something to fear, but something to shape. And then the void ahead shimmered. The Grath Armada emerged from the darkness, hundreds of black, jagged vessels moving with impossible speed. Even at a distance, I felt the heat of their intent, a hunger for destruction, a singularity of purpose. My fellow Orione recoiled, telepathic cries of fear and dread rippling through the evacuees' quarters. Morgan's voice cut through the tension. "All personnel, this is the moment we train for. Remember, strategy, precision, and trust in each other. The Grath will learn what we already know: humanity does not yield." The human fleets leapt forward. Interceptors streaked out like swarms of metallic falcons, drones buzzed around Grath vanguard ships, and orbital batteries opened fire. The first volley struck with blinding intensity. Grath hulls disintegrated mid-flight, their ships shredded before they could even react. I had seen battle before, but nothing like this. Humans coordinated as if the entire fleet were one organism. Missiles adjusted mid-course, fighters danced through enemy fire, shields interlocked to create overlapping layers of defense. It was devastating and beautiful. The Grath responded with fury. Energy beams lanced across space, striking orbital fortresses. A station near Argo 9's rim exploded in a silent flare of molten metal. I felt a wave of panic rising, but then, the humans adapted instantly. Reconfigure shield matrices, redirect power to outer arrays. Caldwell's voice rang through the comms. Within seconds, the station that had been hit was reinforced by automated repairs and overlapping shields. Another strike would meet the same resistance, multiplied. I realized then, the humans had anticipated not one, not two, but countless contingencies. Their definition of shelter was no passive refuge, it was living, reactive, evolving defense. I moved to the communications array to watch their tactics unfold. There, predicting the Grath's moves, I whispered. Talon leaned over my shoulder. "It's not prediction. It's control. They're bending the battle to themselves." The Grath realized too late that the humans were not simply defending, they were hunting. Warp point interceptors cut through their formations, fracturing their fleet. Command vessels were isolated and destroyed with surgical precision. Even as we cowered, humans struck with calm fury, turning the Grath's own aggression against them. Yet the armada was vast. Our relief at their success was tempered by the realization that many more Grath ships loomed in the darkness. For the first time since Asterion fell, I sensed fear, but not in humans. Only in Orione hearts. Morgan's voice came again, steadier than before. "Prepare for boarding action. Our teams will intercept any enemy boarding crafts. Orioni evacuees remain inside shelters. The fight is ours to bear. And then the Grath did something unexpected. They launched pod-like craft toward Argo 9, attempting to strike the orbital habitats directly. Panic surged through the evacuees. But the humans were ready. From every defensive platform, automated interceptors struck the pods mid-flight. Human boarding teams engaged directly in zero-gravity combat. I watched as soldiers leapt from hull to hull, weapons blazing, moving with a speed and precision that seemed almost superhuman. The pods were cut apart before they reached any habitat, each interception a promise: "We will not lose you." I followed Morgan on the comm feed as he coordinated the fleets. First Fleet, concentrate fire on Vanguard cluster. Third Fleet, cut off retreat vectors. Orbital fortresses, maintain overlapping shields. All units, no mercy. A flash of dread passed through me. No mercy? We Orioni were survivors. We fled. Humans fought. And they fought not just for survival, they fought to dominate, to protect, to eradicate the threat entirely. Hours passed like seconds. The battle stretched across the void, deafening in its silence, violent in its geometry. Grath ships exploded in cascading showers of metal. Entire squadrons were obliterated before the enemy could form strategies. Every move humans made seemed deliberate, preemptive, inevitable. At one point, Caldwell's voice cut sharply: "Morgan, the Grath flagship is attempting a ramming trajectory. Shields will not hold." Morgan's response was precise. "Hensley, intercept. Chen, prepare ion disruptors. Launch all countermeasures. Do not allow it to reach Argo 9. The flagship collided with nothing but vacuum. Ion disruptors tore through its hull, breaking it apart like glass. Humans celebrated without ceremony. Calm. Focused. Ready for the next wave. By the third day, the Grath armada had been shattered. Ships fled in scattered, broken formations. The survivors that remained retreated into warp space, their pursuit unthinkable against human coordination. We Orioni, huddled in shelters and observation decks, stood silent. The humans had done what no one else could: they had protected us, destroyed the enemy, and turned the void itself into their weapon. Morgan finally addressed us. The Grath will not return soon. But they will adapt. We will continue to fortify the system and ensure your survival. You asked for shelter. We gave more: security, strength, and the certainty that your people can endure. I felt the weight of those words. More than survival, more than refuge, they had given us something we thought lost: the chance to rise again. Later, I walked among the evacuees. Children stared at the human soldiers and engineers with wide, awed eyes. Survivors whispered stories to each other, comparing humans to the myths of old, beings of strength and courage. We began to understand that these humans were not just another species. They were a force of nature, persistent, relentless, protective. Morgan passed by, briefly locking eyes with me. There was no triumph in his expression, only resolve. "The universe is bigger than fear," he said quietly. "And humans fight like hell to protect what they care about." I nodded. I realized then that shelter had never been only about walls or safety. Shelter was about standing together, about strength meeting danger head-on. And humans had redefined it entirely. Weeks later, Argo 9 was fully operational. Orbital fortresses hummed with activity, the evacuee habitats were secure, and human warships patrolled the system with unwavering vigilance. I watched as builders finished the final touches on a massive orbital cannon, a testament to human determination. The Orioni began to regain hope. Our fleet, once scattered and broken, began reconstruction. And for the first time, we dared to consider a future beyond fleeing, a future where we could fight back if the Grath returned. And return they would. But now, we had allies who did not understand fear, only resolve. Humans who did not merely shelter, they fought, they built, they commanded, and they won. I looked out at the warships standing sentinel against the void. I felt a stirring of awe, gratitude, and cautious optimism. We had asked for shelter. We had received commanders, builders, and warships. And in doing so, the humans had given us a lesson far greater than survival. They had given us hope, and with it, the power to endure. For the first time in centuries, I believed the stars could be ours again. And maybe, just maybe, the Grath would learn what it truly meant to challenge humanity. The universe had shifted that day. And in its wake, we Orioni would never forget what it meant to be defended by those who refused to yield.